This episode is brought to you by the Safe and Sound Protocol service from CPJ Counseling Services. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Crossing with CPJ. This is a conversation where we are here to walk with you through some very interesting topics. I'm glad that you're here, and I want to take the time to introduce some of my colleagues who work with me at CPJ Counseling. So I'll start off with myself first. My name is Jetty. I'm a licensed therapist. I work with people who are navigating stress, trauma, and anxiety. And I use mostly EMDR and somatic based techniques to help people navigate stress throughout the world. I want to introduce, I'll start with Carlissa. If you can share a little bit about who you are and exactly what work it is that you do.
Yes. Hello, everybody. My name is Carlissa Fennell, and I work with teens and young adults, especially. I am passionate about helping people navigate anxiety, depression, and trauma. And I work with parts work, and I do a little bit of EMDR and just navigating transitionary periods.
Yeah. Thank you, Carlos, for sharing. Who's next? Anyone want to jump in?
I can go next.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mayelin Matos. I am a licensed social worker specialized in adult and healthy aging. I am EMDR trained, and a lot of my work involves mindfulness, trauma informed, and I have a lot of experience working with the Latino community in working with managing stress, anxiety, and in life transition.
Yeah. We'll throw the ball to Sherelle.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sherelle. I work with teens and young adults with focus in specialty areas in depression, anxiety, reducing stress. I'm interested and will be taking on um, more somatic modalities soon. I have a background in school counseling, so
Yeah.
I have a background in education as well as in mental health. So I can see both the educational side as well as the real life experiences of the teens and young adults.
Yeah. Thank you guys for introducing yourselves. To begin, I want to anchor our conversation and what we know. And I'm going to provide you guys with some context on anxiety, a bit of research, and a bit of statistics to help anchor our conversation and just to educate the general population about what anxiety is and what is going on right now, today in the world, and specifically United States, and really throughout communities, I would say Black and Brown communities. Anxiety disorders are the most common mental health conditions among adults in the United States. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, roughly 1 in 5 adults experience an anxiety disorder each year, and about 1 in 3 will at some point in their life. Women are affected more often than men. And behind these statistics are sleepless nights, racing hearts, and people who are silently managing their inner worlds. Looking more broadly, data from federal surveys show that in 2023, about 23% of U.S. adults experienced any type of mental illness. That is a huge number, 23%. And 6% face serious mental illness. And when I say serious mental illness, I'm talking about things like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. Among young adults aged 18 to 25, numbers are even more striking. Nearly 34% experience some form of mental illness, and about 10% face a serious mental health crisis. What's just as urgent, many do not receive adequate care that they need. They do not receive the adequate care that they need. Only 54% of adults with any mental illness received treatment within the past year. That means that nearly half did not. And this is often because of cost, insurance barriers, or simply not knowing where to start. So, we're going to talk a bit more about these statistics and the impact that they are having on our community, the people that we treat at our practice, and even in some instances, our own families. And And for some of us, myself included, even our own history. So, our goal today is super simple. We want to make clinical knowledge usable. We want to name what many of us have been experiencing as a community. We want to show what healing can look like in everyday life. All right. So, I've already kind of talked to you guys a little bit about the statistics. I want to open this up to the team and ask a little bit more about what they have been noticing. Behind behind those statistics are people, they are our coworkers, they are our parents, they are students. So, I want to invite conversation with you guys. Any one of you can speak in with if a question resonates with you. Um I think I'll also jump in with some information. When you hear the word stress or anxiety, what do you picture? Is it something physical, emotional, or something entirely different in itself?
When I hear the word anxiety, I hear, or maybe from personal experience, I feel an invisible um, thing that I am trying to navigate. Um, Anxiety doesn't always, it's not always out loud, it's not always seen. Um, so I kind of equate it to like Casper, like the ghost, where it's there,
Mhm.
but not everybody can see it.
Yeah. Well, I like that.
Um, eh, Jody, when I think about anxiety and stress, I often um, think about the body. I starts
Oh,
with how it shows up in our body. And it often shows up. I think you mentioned, with the tight shoulders,
oh,
that poor sleep. The day end, and you go to sleep, but you still have the same thoughts at night that keep you awake. A lot of stomach issues. Sometimes, your belly doesn't feel right. Um, you feel like constantly on the edge, perhaps.
wow.
Um, so I often use this analogy with clients. It's like you have different tags open in our mind. It feels like there is a
Yeah.
lot of things going, and you have a really hard time just feel calm and relaxed. And yeah, it's not often they're not telling you like, "Oh, I feel anxiety." It's just this nodding feeling that something isn't quite uh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are really great examples.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I would agree with both Malin and Sherelle. I think when I think about anxiety, for some reason, I conceptualize like a bunch of squiggly lines, and they're just kind of all like overlapping, and you don't really know where there's a clear start or a clear end.
Yeah.
And I think that that shows up in the way that people who experience anxiety or anxious thoughts kind of approach their life. It's really hard to figure out where this thought goes or where this thought comes from or how to kind of regulate, and so I think that it's just something that, like Sherelle said, can be invisible or it can be loud, it can be in your body. It's just there's no clear way that someone
Mm.
expresses it, and I think that that is what makes it tricky for people to recognize sometimes.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned at the end that that's what makes it tricky for them to recognize. So, if I think about when you're working with clients, or let's just say it's your cousin, right? And you're having a conversation with your cousin, and she might be describing what you know clinically is anxiety. How would you guys explain that to your cousin? Like, uh, how could they distinguish if it is regular everyday stressors, like a normal stress, the world is chaotic right now, versus it is actually anxiety? Yeah.
That's a great question. I think the way that I help even myself or someone else to kind of distinguish between the 2 is I think about, like, your window of tolerance, and so what is, like, the max amount of stress you can handle and still
Mhm.
show up at work, show up for your family, participate in your hobbies, and what does it look like when you are outside of that window of tolerance, right? So maybe you're, like, more forgetful or, You notice that you're like leaning into watching more television or not doing the things that make you feel good. And I think that if you can kind of put it into a scale, it can help you recognize like, oh, I have forgotten 3 things on my calendar this week. Something is happening there.
Nice. Those
I
are great
agree.
examples. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's also sometimes with if I'm talking to this cousin, like, how long have you been experiencing this?
Mm,
And when what was the event that caused you to, like, recognize that something was off? Because I think sometimes we don't listen to either our bodies or, sometimes the things that are happening with us, and it's been happening for a period of time. I agree with Jerome and Kalisa. I think that, in the age that we are in, there is a lot of information, a lot of videos, TikToks that kind of tells you, self-diagnose. I think, how do you recognize normal stress versus anxiety? I think it's like Jerome was saying, like, when do you start experiencing it, right? Like, in order for us to determine, like, is this like how you just currently going through a period of time when there is a lot of stuff happening? And I think the way you can tell is right, once that stress is over, can you normalize? Can you come back to the baseline and be able to function normally? And sometimes what we see with anxiety is that even after the stress is over, we're still on the edge. And, that required a little, perhaps more support.
yeah. You know, I think all of those responses are so right on, and if I think about talking to my cousin, and I'm not sure that my cousin would know, what her baseline is, so can you guys expand a little bit more on what an exact baseline would be for somebody? Um Yeah, if I think let's say, Sherelle, I wanna pose this question to you. How would you explain to your cousin, the cousin that you just visited last week, or maybe it was your sister-in-law last
Hmm.
weekend, how would you explain baseline, right, versus, feeling anxious to her?
Mm. I probably would ask. I probably would ask maybe about what does a typical day look like for her, or typical what does
Mhm.
happy look like, versus what is sad. Like, I would start to kind of go through almost like the feelings wheel, where we kinda talk about, like, some of the general feelings, and then talk about when's the last time we felt this way versus this.
Yeah.
Um, and and then kind of come up with an idea of the baseline as to, all right, this is a little out of the normal. You've expressed that you typically have a really good day, it's productive. You may have the slump after lunch for a hot second, but then you kind of bounce back until it's time to go home for dinner. Versus, like Carlissa mentioned earlier, oh, I sat in front of the TV and I kinda just doodled for,
Mm,
5 hours. And I'm now recognizing I'm doing that often, where we're able to kind of identify the differences in our day.
yeah. Thank you for answering that. I think for us culturally as Black and brown people,
Mhm,
stress is one, like, with such a badge of honor, and
mhm.
I'd even be curious if people I go back to, do they know their baseline? Do they know when they're feeling stress, and then how to handle healing? So my next question is, what have you guys noticed in your practice or in your personal life about how stress impacts people on a day-to-day basis? Right? If stress is a norm for us, right? We're always on the go. Maya Lynn mentioned that we're always on screens. How do people know that they are even being impacted at all?
I think, Jenny, you mentioned earlier that a lot of, minority, Black and brown, I worked a lot with the Latino, and I think that we do carry, stress as a badge of honor. There is this idea of push through and go through, which is a
Mhm.
beautiful thing, resilience. But I think that sometimes we forget to um, take care of ourselves. We give a lot for our family, We are giving a lot for sometimes even us as a clinician, giving a lot for our community. And we forget to nurture our own, you know, ourselves and prioritize um, our health and maintaining ourselves healthy so we can show up whole for other people. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that as well too. This is actually a story about my real cousin, and I don't think she would mind that I would share this. Eh,
Thank you,
she
Carlos's cousin.
yeah. Um, Unfortunately, I think that sometimes you don't know how stressed you are until it manifests in a somatic way. So,
Mm.
she was having a lot of, like, tooth pain, and so she went to, like, 2 dentists, and, like, I think she ended up, they were trying to say that there was, like, a nerve damage or something, but eventually, they figured out that she needs to wear a night guard because at night, she, like, clenches her jaw so
What?
much. And I'm like, "Oh, have you always been doing that?" Right? Like the question like Sherelle said, like, "How long have you been doing that?" And it was like a genuine question. And then we were able to kind of realize like, "Oh, so you're like more stressed at work." And so now like at night, this is when you're kind of like holding on to your stress. And so I wish that that wasn't the case, that people didn't wait until it manifests in their body or outwardly. I wish that we would be able to catch it sooner. And I think it's just like Myelin said, like, being able to go slower and pay attention to, like, what your body is saying and what your body needs. Um, yeah, and so I think that if we can catch it when it's, like, just an emotional thing, it may not get to this physical manifestation.
Mhm. Yeah, and I know research says that for Black and brown people especially that, things like anxiety or depression or any mental illness often shows up somatically first. Why do we think that in our culture, whether it's the Black and brown community or just in American culture, why do we normalize stress instead of addressing it? Where do we think that root comes from?
Honestly, I think success, it it takes over, and so people feel or they equate success with hard work, which, yes, it may include hard work, but then people feel like sacrifice. That if they're not
Mm,
sacrificing some aspect of their life or, their time, then they're not working hard enough, to get to that successful moment, and, um, so I think somebody mentioned earlier, like, actually, like, taking a pause, and a step back to really analyze, like, I'm working hard, but what is it doing to my body? Like, how is it affecting me? Um, I think about when Carlissa was mentioning her actual cousin and, the grinding of the teeth at night. I think about how anxiety sometimes shows up where you're working on a project, it's deadline, it's crunch time, and then you recognize like I can't sleep and so people are
mm,
quick to go to quick fixes like, "Oh, well, let me just pop a couple melatonin," not realizing that they're just anxious about the things that's happening. They're stressed. They're a little overwhelmed, and that's their body's way of talking to them to say
yeah,
like, "Hey, girl, slow down." So, yeah.
yeah. Mhm. So we've talked about the somatic ways in which stress shows up. Um, some other physical ways can be when you wake up, your mind is racing. As soon as you start your day, Cheryl in, when you lay down at night, your mind keeps going and it's playing all the things that you've done through the day, all the things you have to do tomorrow. It may show up in you sitting in your chair and you're in a call and your leg is just going, 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 right? It may manifest itself as stomach sensations, right? You might be going number two, either too much or you're not going number two at all. So it can show up in really big and pronounced ways and in very small ways. Like Carlos has said, the tooth pain. I had a client who began to have severe pain at her left pinky toe and would go to the emergency room and they could not find out what was going on. But as soon as we started to do somatic work, the pain relieved itself, right? Because she was a very high functioning CEO of a company and she was taking on work, 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 as Mylin said, constantly in front of a screen. That is a lot for the nervous system. I'm curious, as we've been talking about how it manifests itself physically and mentally, what are some rhythms that could help people start their day with less chaos, and to really address how stress has historically kind of been a part of our lives? Think about maybe things that you guys do yourselves, right? Or
Mm,
maybe things that you share with your clients.
for me, Jody, I think that starting the morning, um, just a little slower, just waking up and be more intentional and, uh, you know, just get up. It's as simple as putting my feet on the ground and just taking a couple of breaths before jumping into the rush and creating just 10 to 15 minutes to just process what's going to happen, whether that is taking my tea or my coffee or whatever in silent, waking up a few minutes early and start with just those 10 minutes for myself to kind of ground and have some time to just be with that silence in that moment, especially in the hectic work. You wake up and things just start immediately. So just
Yeah.
carve a few minutes for yourself just so that you can just sit. And that can look as I know that culturally can look differently. It can be as a prayer, it could be as meditation, it could be writing, whatever works. And I think we can find different things works for us in that moment. 10 to 15 minutes, just sit and check in, sort of.
Yeah.
Um, for me, as it relates to like telling clients or giving clients ideas on how to slow down, for a lot of my teen clients, the first thing they do when they open up their eyes is they scroll Instagram, TikTok. They're not really on Facebook, but they're quick to go to an app or some type of connection dealing with technology, and there's no real pause that occurs. And I feel like I don't have the data, like, I don't have the numbers, like, I'm not a statistician, but I'm sure that there are numbers out there that stress, like, how the use of the cell phone and technology has increased, and that, we're using a lot of technology for a lot of things, which is great, right? We're advancing. But we don't take those moments to pause before injecting it into our day. We utilize technology throughout the day. I mean, think about it. We're recording a podcast utilizing technology right now. Many of us, we see clients virtually utilizing technology, TVs, all types of apps. The Aura Ring is real big right now. Um, but taking a step back to just really pause before incorporating technology into your day. I think even just like Malin was saying, for just 10 minutes where you're just
Mm.
quiet is necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. I will kind of add something onto what you're saying, Sherelle. It's also like being intentional about the media that you're intaking. And I think,
Yes.
especially with like teenagers, right? Of like, I think the algorithm does a great job of like pushing what you're interested in. And so if you're already in an anxious state and you're gravitating towards like anxious or very like stressful story times or videos or news articles, just being mindful about that and maybe limiting the amount of time you spend watching the news, listening to things that may not be healthy for your nervous system, and not being afraid to take breaks. I think that's important.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you guys brought up the use of technology, right? 1 in 3 teens is experiencing anxiety right now. 1 in 3. So 1, 2, 3, 1 in 3 of them. That's a huge number.
Uh-huh.
How can parents uh have conversations with their teens or even, the younger kids who have access to technology right now in their hand, how can they have conversations with them about using their phones or limiting their cell phone use without creating shame or additional anxiety?
I would take it a step back. I would even, before having a conversation,
Mhm.
model the behavior.
Mhm.
So encouraging parents to actually model the behavior that they want to see in their teens. Because so many times, right? Do as I say, not as I do. I don't know who heard that growing up, but that was a thing, right? But we now have to kind of shift that mindset to really say, okay, do as I say, but also what I'm saying is what I'm doing. So
Yeah.
encouraging parents to have those behaviors, those traits, so that their kids see that because we know human growth and development, kids are going to take in what they see, what is routine. And so if they take in these healthy behaviors,
Yeah.
they're more inclined to adapt them in their own life. So I think first, before even having a conversation, making sure that checking yourself as a parent to say, all right, am I doing what I said I want my kid to do? Or am I asking them to do something different? And then I think that could lead to really healthy discussion and dialogue with children about
Mm,
having those healthy behaviors around technology.
I love that. So parents lead. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say just not being afraid to ask questions too, right? So if you're noticing a behavior and you're noticing that, oh, like every night after school, you go in your room and you shut the door and you don't come back out, being curious. And I think, like you said, not wanting to be judgmental or not wanting to assume you know what's happening. I think that, like, um, teenagers, their life is completely different from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20, 30 years ago. And so I think that oftentimes parents can have this assumption like, "Oh, you can't be depressed. Like you have no reason to be depressed." So I think leaning with curiosity and being open to hear an answer that maybe you won't expect and just having conversations around like what their reality is and what their life looks like. And I think that that will open up the doors to kind of making sure they get the support and the resources that they may need.
Mhm. That's good.
Yeah,
Oh,
I like how
that's
Kalisa
good.
used the word curiosity. I think that,
Mhm.
when you have that curiosity, it leads to more connection with your kids.
Yes.
And that connection is when you bring those conversations that can help you understand the world a little bit. We grew up. I mean, I think we all pretty young, but I mean, we grew up in a different time where technology was very different. So, kind of putting ourselves in their shoes, understanding with that curiosity, like, um, this means something for you. Like, let me connect and understand um, what is that about, and go from there. I think it's connect and then correct, along with also modeling,
Yeah.
like Cheryl was saying. But sometimes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Parents lead by modeling, and then you
Mhm,
connect with your kids before you correct the behavior, right?
mhm.
And both of those things, if we lead with curiosity, we can see a huge shift in the way our kids approach connecting with others, approach connecting with themselves, and approach connecting with life. I want to kind of land this ship a little bit. And my final thought or question that I have for you guys is I want you to speak directly to your audience, right? Speak directly to the person that you serve, that you enjoy working with. If they are feeling overwhelmed or heavy with anxiety right now, what is one thing you want them to remember from this conversation?
Mm. Um, I will say that, stress is it's not it's not a good or bad. It's just our body way of signaling that we need to pause, recharge,
Yeah.
take some time. Um, Something else is connection. it protects us from the impact of the daily life. So spending time with the people that are there for us, connect, and we don't have to deal with life alone. It can it can be
Mm,
it can be very um, nurturing to spend time with friends, family.
yeah. Thank you. Mm,
I would also, I would say stress and anxiety are it's normal to have it, right?
mhm, yeah.
I think everybody has some form of stress and anxiety in their life. I think the difference is the prolonged experiences of that stress and anxiety, and knowing that as you
Mm,
continue to receive that heightened level of stress and anxiety, it could do other damage to yourself. And so I think it's important, once you recognize that you are stressed, overwhelmed, or heightened anxiety, that you actively try to do something with it. And like Maylin said, connect with your community to see if you can challenge each other to decrease stress and anxiety.
yeah. That's good.
Yeah, I love that. I think if I were to speak directly to my audience, I would say that you don't have to do it alone. I think for whatever reason, my niche is like hyper independent women. And I think that sometimes there is this responsibility of like just figuring it out, or just like we talked about earlier, like just kind of pushing through it and just kind of
Yeah.
accepting being in this like high state of this regulation. And I think that like there are resources, like Mylan was saying, there are communities, there are things that you can do where you don't have to continue to carry the weight of the world by yourself. And just being courageous and like taking some of that weight off of you, and being okay with the things kind of figuring themselves out. And so not being afraid to seek help, ask questions, and ask for what you need.
Mm. So good, ladies. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation today. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your guidance. And thank you for your presence. And to our community that's listening, we want you to know you do not have to do this alone, that there is literally so much healing within the context of community. There is compassion here. There is kindness here. There is nurture here. And if you want to hear more about CPJ Counseling, visit us at www.cpjcounseling.com. Hey guys, before we head out, I wanted to take a quick moment to tell you about a program that we offer at CPJ Counseling. Sonic Crest can keep the body in a constant state of alert, making rest, focus, and emotional balance harder to access. At CPJ Counseling, we offer the Safe and Sound protocol as one way to support the nervous system and getting our body back regulated. SSP is a 5-hour listening based program designed to help the body respond differently to stress over time. For more information about the service, visit us at cpjcounseling.com. And don't forget to follow us on here, on YouTube, Instagram, and our website. All the links are on the screen or in the description below. Stay tuned for our next post and, of course, the next episode. See you soon. Bye.